For highlights of history with a hint of humor from historic experience, this is Timeline. Timeline, October 19th, 1781. 7 years of rebel response to British battalions all comes to this. 3 more weeks of fighting. General Charles Cornwallis commanded himself into a corner in Yorktown and surrounding environs, with George Washington digging out the trenches in an unparalleled parallel, Alexander Hamilton doubtless taking the redoubts, and Thomas Nelson Jr. ordering cannons to fire on his own family house because he thought Cornwallis was inside. One volley supposedly landed on the dining room table. That's a spicy cannonball. Well, Cornwallis could read the writing on the walls, or rather the hulls, of dozens of ships from the French fleet. And so Cornwallis calls the whole thing off, and on the 19th, over 6,000 British and Hessian troops take a conveniently short walk from the battle at Yorktown to the surrender at Yorktown. Or perhaps Yorktown adjacent. They turn in their guns and call it a war. But Cornwallis sends a doctor's note and his sword with his second-in-command, Charles O'Hara, because Corny's got a cold. Rochambeau and Washington won't take the sword, instead giving it to Washington's second-in-command, Benjamin Lincoln. Well, fair is fair. And so the last major battle of the Revolution is over and done, and Congress calls for a memorial to the battle 10 days later, and it only takes another 100 years to approve and build it. Our Congress. Some things never change. Turns out if you're going to make history, you have to be born first. Here are some of the nifty natal day people born in the month of October. Jonathan Edwards, born October 5th, 1703. This preacher was a pillar in America's first Great Awakening, and despite his most famous sermon having the happy title, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, his theology was rooted in beauty and harmony and the Enlightenment. Eleanor Roosevelt, born October 11th, 1884. Far more than a First Lady, this clever champion of children's rights and civil rights also went on to oversee the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights for the United Nations. You're all right by us, Mrs. Roosevelt. And of course, October is the birth month of 2 of our favorite presidents here at Historic Experience. Eleanor's uncle Theodore Roosevelt, the bull moose himself, born on October 27, 1858, and John Adams, the Colossus of Independence, born October 19, 1735, which after a little calendar change from Julian to Gregorian, became October 30th. Then again, a man as boisterous as Adams might need 2 birthdays. And these are just a few of our many high flyers of history born in October. And in the land of communication, the time to get your message out is October. October 24th, 1861. Little knots and dashes make their way from sea to shining sea. Who could ask for anything more? While telegraph lines had been around for decades before, it was the little line that could, from Fort Kearny, Nebraska, to Fort Churchill in Nevada, that stretched the line all the way across the country to the Golden State, celebrating its first 10 years as a State of the Union. It was a difficult start, with telegraph poles getting struck down by strong winds, lightning strikes, and buffalo using them for scratching posts. But on the 24th, the first transcontinental telegram in America was sent from California's Chief Justice Stephen Field in San Francisco to President Abraham Lincoln in Washington, D.C., sending a message that previously could take months to arrive. Now that's a 2,800-mile dash. Or rather a dot, and another dot, then a dash, then a dot, then a dash, then a dot, then a dot, then a dot. But as the prophets say, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. And on this day, the telegraph gets set and goes. The Pony Express says whoa. One of the efforts to connect the West to the rest, the 4-legged mail service made the trip from Missouri to California in 10 days, getting a fresh horse every 10 miles that stops along the route. Much better than those day-old horses. It was a livery lifeline, keeping the growing country better connected. But within 18 months, this horse needed to be put out to pasture, going bankrupt on the same day that telegram was sent. But the legend and lore of the Pony Express rides on. Well, we've come to the end of this month's timeline, but there's always much more history to discover in this month and beyond. So stay tuned to this station and subscribe to find out more. And remember, the best time to make history is right now.